Hello everybody! Today's video is going to be about something I see brought up over and over again. Why didn't Kinkajou get her own book? We're going to take a look at her arc, her character, and how having her as one of the POV mains might have shifted the trajectory of the series itself. Quick note before I get into that though, I just wanted to let everyone know that I got a Patreon. Finally, I know! There's a link in the description and you can go there to support me and get behind the scenes and extra content. Be sure to check it out. So, to get back to the topic of today's video, Kinkajou. Kinkajou has always been a really interesting character to me because although she's one of the series' oldest characters, introduced all the way back in book 3, she's never really lost a lot of what made her charming and interesting all those books ago. She's young, she's funny, she's optimistic. This is a brand of character very common to Tui's writing style, especially over the last few years, and we see it explored more and more in later books, with Peril's book, Sunny's book, and with several other side characters who share Kinkajou's type of funny, happy dialogue. A lot of people have wondered why Kinkajou didn't get her own book though. I've seen it several times, even as long ago as my original POV character headshot video, way back when, and I am working on redoing one of those. But I've always had people commenting, asking me where Kinkajou was, because it's such a natural progression of thought to include Kinkajou in with those, original 10 POV main characters. I think so many people expected to see her as a POV character, as a matter of course, because by Arc 2, not only was she a legacy character with plenty of fan favorite backing, but she was a part of the Jade Winglet, which furnished the characters for most of Arc 2. Adding these things up, I can really see how a lot of people expected her to be in that arc, and how a lot of people could feel cheated when she ended up not being one of those main characters. It seemed like Kinkajou was a really obvious choice for POV. She was well established, well liked, and a great character to have around. So why didn't Tui give her her own book? The simple explanation is that Kinkajou's character is similar enough to Sunny's that giving her her own POV book would have felt redundant and repetitive. The worst possible thing to do in a series is to accidentally have an entire book that feels repetitive or boring. Wings of Fire is very much a character-driven series, with focuses on variety and personality. If Tui had given Kinkajou a book of her own, that would have detracted from the overall value of the series, because Kinkajou is a very similar character to Sunny. And one of the best things about having, the 15 different main POV characters is that we get 15, or we hypothetically would have gotten 15 very different and very interesting main characters to relate to and to put ourselves in the different shoes of. However, this isn't the only reason, even if it's an extremely valid one. Personally, I'm glad Kinkajou didn't get her own book. I have a few different reasons why. Kinkajou's character arc is perfect the way it is. It's just enough to establish her as a well-rounded character, three-dimensional, with flaws, strengths, goals, and relationships. Had she gotten a POV book, I feel like it would have forced more growth than her character was ready for, and it wouldn't be as good as what we have. Kinkajou has matured over the course of 7 books, from about 3 to 10, and that lets her have a slow, realistic arc. They're plot-driven. Something in the plot creates a big problem for them, which causes them to have a big instance of character growth. This is natural for main characters. This is how they work. In order for a main character to go through the growth required for a character arc needed for a main character, you have to have something big happen with the plot in order to trigger a big response. However, with the plot for Arc 2 that we had, I don't think this would have worked in Kinkajou's best interest. The plot for Arc 2 was very tight, it was very solid, there wasn't really room to wiggle it around and give Kinkajou a side story that would have triggered enough growth to justify making her a main character. She was a solid side character in Arc 2, but not a focal character. Trying to shove her into that spotlight would not only have altered an already intricate and delicate plot, it would have forced her into too much too fast. Nothing in Arc 2 was suitable to justify the amount of Kinkajou focus needed for a Kinkajou book. Honestly, I think Tui almost did better with Kinkajou than with several of her POV mains. Like, all of the third arc's cast comes to mind. Kinkajou has had all the time she needs to grow into herself, unaffected by the needs of the plot. Her arc isn't confined to one book alone, or even one arc. Her relationships span wide groups of dragons, giving her connections all over the place. And to top it all off, she's still interesting and fun to read about with that signature comedic dialogue that's hooked us all, even back in book 3. This is the real reason I love Kinkajou so much. Although the one character point of view per book method works, it makes it very easy to sideline characters after their book is done. For instance, take characters like Clay, Tsunami, Moon, Turtle, even Starflight, and again, literally everyone from Arc 3. After their books, we don't really hear much from them, and certainly we don't see any continued character growth. They don't change much. A series that switches POV throughout the books has more options for continued, long-term, realistic character arcs. For instance, characters like Peril, Keebly, and Winter, although they were POV characters, continued to be addressed both before and after their books. Even an appearance in a single other book can add so much more depth to a character. It gives us a starting point and a finishing point that's a little bit longer than you can cover in just one book. And don't get me wrong, I adore Tui's methods of character writing. She has a massive series with a gigantic cast, and she manages it all fabulously. Sometimes there just isn't enough room in a book for all the characters you need to address. It's just all the more reason why I think Kinkajou's character and her place in the series are also perfect. If you're a main POV character, you're subject to the needs of the plot more than other characters. Kinkajou has 7 or so books to mature on her own, which lend her a more realistic and believable arc. This is how to write good side characters. Take the hint from Tui. Or of course, any good characters. You have to give them plenty of time to grow up and change, and you have to let them have the space to do that. In my opinion, side characters are often the most well-developed and interesting people in many books and movies. They don't have the same obligations to plot as main characters do. After all, how many series or movies or shows can you count in which your favorite character is a side character? I know for me, it's most of them. So in conclusion, although I love Kinkajou just like the rest of you, I'm happy with her arc as it is. There can be such a thing as too much focus on a character after all, and they only have so much to give you. Sometimes the real art to writing is knowing when to back off and let something go on its own, and I think Tui got that down perfectly with Kinkajou. Would I read a Kinkajou book? Of course. Do I think it would be the next best step for her character or even the overall plot and pacing of the series itself? No, not really. Arc 2, the arc wherein Kinkajou is most heavily featured, is tight-knit and fast-paced. We did not have time to spend on a character who wasn't as heavily involved as our main 5 POVs ended up being. For instance, look at Arc 3 and how the pacing ended up being so lacking and disappointing. If Kinkajou had been squeezed into a POV in Arc 2, who knows what it might have looked like. Anyways, what are your thoughts? Do you like Kinkajou's arc as it is? Do you still wish she'd gotten her own book, and if so, would you rather it be in Arc 2 or in Arc 3? Have I changed any of your thoughts on the subject? As always, be sure to like this video and drop a comment if you enjoyed it. I certainly had a good time working on it. Also, don't forget to subscribe for more content like this and check out the description for my links, including a link to my new Patreon. Thank you so much for watching, and please have a wonderful week.